KoitCast.
Hi Marina, welcome to KoitCast.
Hi, Koit. Glad to be here.
Thank you ever so much for coming. In your own words, can you just tell a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where you come from? All that stuff.
Mm. So, I'm a therapist. My background's in psychology. In my previous lifetime, this lifetime, when I was younger, I was quite involved in the psychiatric community, and I transitioned from that to doing a more alternative style of working with clients. And so much of the work that I do is what I would refer to as the sacred arts. So it's a combination of psychotherapy as well as divination, using tarot and astrology, as well as female embodiment practices. That's part of the work I do. And yeah, I do a lot of coaching, mentoring in that space for women, particularly. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to dive straight into some of your involvements. We'll call it that. Tarot. I'm a newbie to this completely. Can you explain what it is and how it came about and all that sort of stuff? If that's okay, please.
How it came about for
Yeah.
me.
Well, for you, and
Yes.
then if you
So,
know the history of it, by all means.
yes. Yes. So, for me personally, I had my first reading when I was 19 years old. I was always very curious about the sacred arts, about psychic awareness and meditation practices and alternative practices. So I had my first reading when I was 19, and that was a very profound reading for me because at the time I was pregnant, and the reader at that time did not know. And the first card that he pulled was the Empress card in the Mythic Tarot, which is the deck that I now use and teach. And that blew my mind. He said to me, either you are pregnant now or you will be pregnant in the very near future. And of course, I was pregnant at that
Hmm.
point. So that was my first moments of being really like impressed and intrigued about the occults, about divination. And I purchased a deck of cards about, within 24 hours. Really, it was the next day, and started using the cards, teaching myself how to use the cards. And that progressed. I had my first business when I was in my early 20s, where I taught tarot and I taught the intuitive arts. And yeah, that progressed to me then now 50-ish.
Gloss over that one, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just gloss over that bit, 50-ish. And yeah, with the school, International School of Tarot Therapy, which, it moved from tarot, predictive tarot, into a more therapeutic process because I felt like it was a missing piece in tarot. And whilst I love tarot and I love the potential of it, making predictions, what I noticed is that people, for use of a better word, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Great. Okay. I just noticed people pulling shit out of thin air and leading people down paths that were potentially destabilizing and really out of alignment for the clients. So I was on a mission, really. I went on a mission to create a new method of reading, which I've done successfully. And now I teach. So it's not tarot reading, it's tarot therapy. So it's a combination of counseling, psychotherapy, and tarot. And yeah, I love it. It's amazing. So historically, tarot once was used as a way to determine personality types,
Okay.
and it actually derived from the deck of cards. The joker that you see in a deck of cards has transformed into the fool of the tarot, the first card of the major arcana, also known as the trump cards. But I won't go into the history. It's a little bit, to be honest, it's a bit boring.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the Joker is known as the Fool. So the cards that I use, that I've chosen to use, are not my own deck. It's really hard to find a deck, I feel, with the level of depth that the Mythic Tarot offers. And even if I was to try to compete with that and create something of my own, I really feel like I wouldn't be able to do it the same justice. The deck is so incredibly deep. It's the deck is written by Liz Green and Juliet Sherman Burke, and the deck is based on Greek mythology and also astrology and also Jungian psychology. And the book that comes with the cards is incredibly deep. There's so much insight and wisdom in the book. And so the book itself is just worth reading, just if you want to just learn a little bit more about Greek mythology, which ultimately is a psychology, just like astrology is a psychology. We'll just call it an esoteric psychology. Not much has changed from, since ancient Greece. There's still wars and jealousy and famines and,
Yeah, the same
not,
issues from years ago we face now. It's just with a different
yeah,
costume on, so to speak.
correct. Yes.
So obviously your journey was inspired heavily by that point of reading for you. Would it be
Yes.
okay if I asked why you went to have a reading at 19?
Yeah, because I was really curious. Okay, so my background, actually, if I'm going to be even more intimate with you, my father was very much into the occults. And so it wasn't something that was foreign to me. He would do seances in the home, and I would be part of those seances. And so spirit work, the unseen, the sacred feminine, mysticism, that wasn't something that was foreign to me. But um, I didn't have any exposure to tarot, and I was really drawn to it. I found it very interesting, and that's why I ended up having a reading with a man called Patrick, the clairvoyant.
Nice.
And actually, funnily enough, I ended up working with him years later by accidents at some Moulin Rouge events, and we were both the readers at this Moulin Rouge events.
Did he remember
And
you?
we not really. No, I remembered him, of course.
Mm,
I got dressed up as a gypsy, and he was the circus, what do you call the circus ring
the
master?
ringmaster, yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, the lines were massive. It was a big night. Mm.
So that
Yeah. So,
so that you were just like intrigued by it, and then obviously this reading wowed you to the point where you thought, right, my path needs to alter now to go down this direction.
well, it wasn't a conscious decision that I was going to become a tarot reader or a tarot therapist at that point. It was just something I was genuinely curious about, and I loved to play with the cards. So my practice, it was a daily practice, and I read and I embodied and I tried to apply it to my everyday life. And yeah, at one point, people started asking me for readings, and then they started demanding readings from me. And I was roughly around 2021. And
Demanding,
I
like, you
started
will
getting,
give me a reading.
yes, I started getting a bit frustrated. So I thought, I'm going to charge and I'll just see what happens. And if they say no, good, because I can't be bothered. And I said, it's $50 if you want a reading. Well, in that week, I had 10 readings booked in. I was astonished. Like, honestly, I was shocked that that's it was marvelous, and at the same time terrifying, young girl. Um, so that's how it eventuated, which then led to me running a holistic center in my early 20s. It was called Nature's Cabin. So I was teaching people how to use the tools, how to use tools in divination and the occult. And I would run courses, a very young girl running courses, which was, again, once again, somewhat terrifying for a young girl, having 40-year-old and 50-year-old women attending these courses. And yes, so that's where it began, really.
Mm. But that's good
Mm.
in a way because I know it's terrifying when you first start something that you're not used to, but then when you do it, you realize it's a massive doorway to confidence and it makes you where you are now.
Yes, and also the realization that I was dealing with real life problems. So
Mm.
that was my first initiation into working therapeutically with people, but I didn't have the therapeutic skills. And it was very confronting being in a position of power because there is a political dynamic that plays out when someone goes to a tarot reader. There's an assumption that the tarot reader can read your minds, and they can't. It's a myth. They absolutely cannot. And so people just hand over their power to the reader with the expectation that the reader is going to know more about them than they know about themselves. And yeah, it's a very disempowering position for the reader. And it's a dangerous position, sorry, disempowering a position for the clients and a very dangerous position for the reader. And so it wasn't an enjoyable experience when I was younger reading for people. I didn't really enjoy it that much. I preferred teaching. But now that I'm a bit older and now I've had, professional training as, got a degree and have worked in professional settings, I feel much more confidence and more grounded in my practice now. And it's a very different style of reading now that I do. The point is to empower my clients to be the creators of their own journey
Mm. Well,
using
you've got a nice
tarot.
ethical approach here, haven't you? A moralistic and ethical approach to it, which goes in stark contrast to what you said earlier about the people who are charlatans, for a better word, that would just say things randomly.
Yes. Yes. And I don't think people are it's just a little bit of ignorance. And of course, people are often not taught in psychic development circles basic counseling skills. And so they're only just following what they've been taught, which generally in those circles, there isn't a therapeutic approach. And the ethical practice that you're talking about, that you mentioned, yeah, professional and ethical practices aren't really employed in those places.
Mm.
And yeah, I understand. It's just people don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And if nobody is kind of informing you, then you're going to continue doing the practice that is unethical.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, presumably, there's no sort of like regulatory body saying, no, you're
No,
doing this wrong. Yeah.
no, there isn't. There is a tarot guild here in Australia. I'm not a member of the tarot guild. I've just chosen not to do that, not because I'm anti the tarot guild, but my personality, the type of woman that I am, is I don't like being tied down to rules and regulations. I like to do things my way.
Good on you.
So it's in my best interest to not get too involved. However, I am presenting for the Tarot Guild next year for their next events, and yeah, speaking on Demeter or the Empress, actually in the Mythic Tarot.
Right, now this is a
So I have
perfect,
been excluded.
excellent. This is a perfect time then for me to ask, because I know literally nothing about tarot. My girlfriend's mum did give me a tarot reading once, and I had no clue what was going on, if I'm honest. So, how
Yeah.
does it work? What? Because from what you said earlier, in my mind, it seems like there's different cards with different pictures on and stuff. Am I right in that, or am I wrong?
Yes. So there are 78 cards, excuse me, in the Mythic or in any tarot deck.
Hmm.
22 of those cards are what are known as the major arcana, and I refer to them as the trump cards.
Okay.
And these cards represent archetypal experiences that we all will have in a lifetime, whether that be death, forgiveness, new beginnings, alchemization. These archetypal experiences are what I call frequencies that exist within us. And these archetypes, these trump cards, are what I might call the fates, the cards that speak to us about our current initiation, what we are, the initiation that we're currently, involved in. It could be something like death, losing a loved one, and when learning how to manage grief and loss. What does that mean? So maybe we could think of these cards, as the trump cards, as a rite of passage that we all must somewhat endure in our lifetime.
Okay.
So when you understand the psychology of these 22 major arcanas, then it makes it very easy to speak to the client. And so in the tarot therapy, what I teach is dialogue, not a monologue. So the client's voice is invited in the conversation, and they're invited to have a felt experience of that frequency, of that archetype in their body, and we guide them into that space. So they get to have a lived experience and identify it in a way that's true to their experience, rather than just a projection of what I might think it means for them. So it is it's a dialogue. So the minor arcana, the rest of the cards, the minor arcana, there are 4 suits, and the 4 suits represent the building blocks of the human experience: earth, fire, air, and water. And so the water is relational. The air cards are around communication and values and conflict. The wands, or the fire cards, represent your soul purpose, your creative life. And the pentacles, the earth, represents how you bring ideas into manifest form, like how you build a house, bricks and mortar, how you turn, what you discovered in the wands, the inspiration from the fire, and how you bring that, land that into reality. And these cards are archetypal as well. And so they represent, the journey of falling in love. They represent the journey of the adventure of following your life path and your creative path. And the air, for example, swords represents the conflicts and how do we manage conflict in our life. And the pentacles, what do we do with our resources? How do we use our resources to build a life that aligns to the truth of who we are? And yes, so I like to think of the minor cards as the suits, the 4 suits, as being like the event, the details that are happening in our lives, the people that we meet, and how we can course correct. They give us clues of how to manage what's happening in those trump cards, in those rites of passage. And so that's a brief, right? So I teach this over 9 months, but briefly, that's the tarot. And so intelligent, so intelligent. It just details every aspect of human experience.
So I know, and I was going to say, thank you for explaining that, because when you were going through it, I now understand that each of them represents a building block in a human life and the experiences of a human life. Have I encapsulated that?
Yes,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
And it also speaks to your spiritual life too, your soul's journey. So it's both. It is both. Yeah.
Excellent. So I understand that bit now. So the rest of the questions should come fairly easy for me from here. So the bit that might confuse me the most would be, obviously there's a way that you present cards, because I've seen it, well, when it was done to me, they were like put down in a certain order and whatever. How does that work in terms of, say, I don't know, the death card is in there somewhere, right? And presumably they're shuffled. I can't remember what Tiff's mum did. And when that's put down, how does that play out, the laying of the cards?
Yeah, so really, I guess it's a bit like a map.
Okay.
And you don't actually have to lay the cards in any specific order.
Oh, okay.
My phone, sorry, just a minute.
It's all right.
You don't have to paint.
Was that your cat texting you?
No, but actually a human called Felix that is the same name as my cat, so close enough. So where was I? Yeah, so generally what most people use is the Celtic cross reading. And so it's a map. It gives you some kind of structure, something to hold on to. And humans love structure. We love the safety of that. It gives you a sense of control in terms of how to move with the cards. But it's not necessary. You don't have to follow any specific yeah, spreads. You can do whatever you want, but the most popular one is the Celtic cross spread. And it's the one I teach as well because it's so simple and it covers all areas. So the 6 cards in the center of a Celtic cross. If you'd prepared me, I would have had some images for you, and I could have put them up on the
That's
thing. But
okay. Send them
anyway,
to me after, and I'll put them up during this bit. It's no worries.
yeah, okay, yeah. So a Celtic cross spread, the 6 cards in the center represent your present current circumstances. First card being exactly where you are now. The second card being what's crossing you, what's helping you or hindering you. Third card being what's happening in your external life or what are you consciously aware of. Fourth card, what's unconsciously at play or what might be hidden from your awareness. Fifth card represents how the past has influenced the present moment. And the sixth card is the future, what's likely to occur based on the present moment. What are you manifesting based on those cards? And then there's 4 cards down the side, and I call them like the future cards. They give us more information about what's likely to occur if you were to continue on this timeline. And so when I teach tarot, I often just teach those first 6 cards to begin with, to invite people to be really embodied in the present moment, to work with current issues before we look at future conversations with the 4 on the side. Yeah.
So
Does that
obviously,
make sense?
yeah, it does. So it's the building blocks of the now, and if you look at those correctly and analyze those correctly within the person, you then can predict the future based on what's over here
Yes.
because you know the
Yes.
grounding.
Yes. Yes. So we're not really analyzing people in tarot. It was particularly not in tarot therapy. Remember, there's a dialogue, I think I mentioned. So
Yes, yeah.
it's a narrative. It's a narrative process, and we're inviting in questions or inviting our clients to explore questions that they may have never been asked before. So moving beyond questions like how do you feel into questions like perhaps if they have the death card and we're talking about a loved one who's passed over, we might invite in a remembering session with their loved one, which is a narrative process. And one of the questions we would ask is looking through the eyes of your loved one right now, what would you most appreciate about yourself? And these questions kind of break state. It stops people from automatic thinking, a conditioned processing, cognitive loops, and they stop for a moment. And yeah, it calls something a bit deeper within themselves, and particularly to look at themselves through the love of their loved one who's passed over is incredibly moving. So yeah, it's not really analysis, it's a dialogue, it's narrative therapy with some psychotherapy. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking it slightly different now then. So are the cards just a doorway for you to connect with something and get info? I.e., is there any power in the cards at all, or are they literally just a structure, like you said earlier, a map for you then to be able to talk about all the issues that affect people? Or is there power in the cards?
Yeah. So the power exists within you. The cards are definitely a mirror for the unconscious. And if you can sit still long enough to be present with the archetype of the card, then revelations will come forward in the reading. And yes, there is a great mystery, the mystery of the unseen. And yeah, there is, moments when you're reading cards and the particular cards that fall out that are so relevant to the lived experience of the clients. They're picking 10 cards out of 78, and the majority of them are like so aligned to where they're at. It's kind of uncanny. It's weird, right?
Hmm.
So there is this mystical, we are working with the sacred feminine, which is essentially the unseen, feeling, sensation, um, intuition. It's cosmic, it's deep, spiritual, ghostly. occult's taboo. So we are working in that field, that realm as well. And so it's a bit of both, actually. But as I keep repeating, because I just want the listeners to be aware of this, that for a really deep, potent tarot reading, there needs to be dialogue. That's when it's going to be most potent and anchored and rooted in something really significant, tangible, a tangible experience of spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's dawning on me exactly what this is now, and it's a good thing, by the way. It's a real experience, and it's a doorway for the person having the reading to actually open up and say, okay, this is my life. Let's work it out, what's going on and how can it improve, etc. Isn't it? It's a
Yes,
therapy tool, like you said.
definitely. Yeah, it's about being sincere.
Mm.
So it's really unhelpful. I mean, I have clients that come in for readings that just specifically want predictive tarot, and they don't want to tell me anything. And I'll say, okay, well, because they usually invite in what's your intention for today's reading? What would you like to explore? And then I'll do some counseling, a little bit of counseling to help them get really clear on what it is that they want to go deeper on. Sometimes people just have these kind of old-fashioned, outdated views on tarot, and yeah, I usually say, well, let's just throw the cards in the air and let them fall where they may fall. And yeah, it still works. It's still really significant, mainly because the way I read and the way I teach is I'm talking to these archetypal psychological experiences, and they'll identify with it. People always do.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they have to, because it's part of life, isn't it? Yeah.
Real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because the way you've explained it, and I literally did come at this as a newbie, by the way. I know nothing about tarot, and
Yeah.
now I understand it on a level not at your level clearly, but I understand the basics enough to make me understand the need and the process, right?
That's amazing.
But thank you, and you did that. In terms of the wider world, why is it's still looked at just much like the UFO topic as a woo woo? Oh no, it's all crap sort of thing. Whereas actually, there's not this value in it if you understand it. But on TV and stuff, it is that person in the tent charlataning people. Do you know what? That's the image portrayed. But if they had
Yeah.
what you're giving out as the true intentions and behind the process, it wouldn't be looked at like that at all.
Yeah. Yes. Well, clearly there aren't many versions of me. There are other people, of course,
So
that
there's
read
going to be
tarot.
some, yeah.
Yeah. But there are other people that do read tarot similarly to me and have written books, and that have a much more ethical or a passion for psychology, and they've been able
Mm,
to combine tarot. So I'm not the only one. However, we do live in a society where science is celebrated, right? And
yeah, yeah.
because this can't be quantified, because there isn't any real, empirical evidence to suggest that this is a therapy that is, it can't be quantified, then we're in a bit of a situation there. It's just not recognized in the same way like CBT would be, or DBT, or EMDR, or it just can't be quantified. And there is the potential to do qualitative research around this. I'm not that interested in doing that, but wouldn't it be good? It would be great. So that in short, and there is a systemic issue around, in our society where the sacred feminine is still rising. It's still being integrated. We're still learning how to embrace her, or embrace that frequency, which exists within all of us. It's not really assigned to gender.
I was going to say,
Even
because you've mentioned this term sacred feminism or sorry, sacred feminine, and I would like to understand what that is, because is there a sacred male? I don't know, by the way. Again, I'm a newbie at this, so please
sacred
excuse me.
masculine. Yes, there is
Yeah.
a sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, or a divine masculine, divine feminine. I'm not big on polarity conversations, so let's please, I hope we don't go down that path because
No,
it's
no,
I'm
no, not at all.
a little bit anti that. But when I'm talking about the sacred feminine, I'm talking about the side of you or the frequencies that exist within you that are intuitive, that is sensory, that is emotional, that is feeling, that is imaginative. It's kind of like the opposite of logic, in
Oh, I
short, or the
see.
opposite of
Left and
strategic
right
thinking.
brain. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, if we just put it in that context. But there is a great mystery to the sacred feminine, and sometimes I speak of her as being like the black drop to life, where we look up at night and we see all the stars and the moon, and this it's like this magnificent blanket that covers the sky. And she is primordial and she is deep, primordial energy. Her frequency is like birthing, primal nervous system currents. And um, yeah, whereas if we're talking about the sacred masculine, it's more kind of like action orientation, outward motion, externalizing. She's more introvertive, she's introversion, she's introspective. And we need both. We need
Mm.
both. We need the masculine to put structure to our work, and the sacred feminine is that creative energy. We need both.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I've never understood that term sacred feminine before. So again, similar thing. It all falls into place for me as a logical person with,
Yeah.
actually, no, I'm a 50-50 person but I'm highly logical, but I'm also highly creative.
Yeah,
So yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
this. And you've answered loads of questions for me today, and I love that when new things fall into place. How many decks do you own?
Wow, that's interesting. So I'm a die-hard Mythic Tarot fan, and I have a passion for the deck that's out of print. So I currently have four decks that are
Hmm.
out of print of the Mythic Tarot. I have one Jungian deck because I was just curious to see what it was, and yeah, I don't use it. I've got a deck of the Rider-Waite because I thought I should. I don't use it, and that's it. Oh, I've also got Doreen Virtue's deck as well, one of her tarot deck too, which I don't recommend. It's rubbish. But
Yeah, well,
but
again, that's a gloss over subject, that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's it. Yeah.
earlier I sort of asked the question, probably poorly, about are there different pictures and stuff on the cards? So those four decks, as an example, right? Are they all in the same format, i.e., they all have an archetype of death, they all have an archetype of love, say, or
Yes.
whatever these cards are,
Yes.
or are there random new ones created for each deck?
So the Mythic Tarot, well, yeah, people do create their own version of the Rider-Waite's, but the Mythic Tarot is definitely a deck that stands on its own. And the order of the trump cards, there's 22 major cards, the rites of passage, the initiation cards. It's different to the Rider-Waite because it's based on the psychology of the hero's journey. And
Right.
when I teach tarot, we explore the hero's journey, and I invite my students to learn that pattern, to understand, to learn the pattern of the 22 major cards. Because in predictive tarot, if you understand that pattern of the hero's journey and how those cards are laid out, then you can do predictive tarot like with precision. You don't have to pull shit out of thin air because it's the natural flow and effect from the hero's journey, which is an archetypal journey again that you'll experience more time, like many times over a lifetime. It's the up and downs of life. Yeah. Oops.
You got
Yeah.
your cat there. Yeah.
No, it was the heater. The heater.
Ah, yeah, don't
Yeah.
stroke that one. He might be too hot. Um, I'm curious as to know. You know what? Earlier, again, in one of my questions, I sort of alluded to: is it a doorway? Is there a power behind the cards? So this is the person doing the reading, i.e., you.
Yes.
If I did it as an example, and I'm not connected to perhaps a higher spiritual realm, directly, like you know what I mean, psychically aware and stuff, would I be able to do the same job?
Yeah, well, first of all, the way I teach tarot is it's an embodied experience. So
Okay.
I really encourage my students to not take off somewhere out in the ether, astral traveling somewhere, trying to pull information from that area. I just, it's unhelpful. And it's not that I don't believe in that. I channel, I do all sorts of curious things. But to have to become an activated oracle, to be a really clear, concise channel, you need to be able to ground into your body and you need to be able to read your nervous system. So, in fact, sometimes even when my clients are looking at their cards or they're trying to get information from their cards, when I see them look up, because I know they're scanning, they're trying to get information, scanning for information somewhere out there, I'll often invite them to, can maybe just drop your chin down to your body, just slow down a little bit more, take your awareness into your body and just be with the sensation, the feelings, and let that arise. And then tell me what's coming up. And the accuracy is mind blowing when people do that. So it's not about taking off somewhere, it's about being fully present. To be, um, I was going to say to be a gifted psychic, you just need to be grounded. That's it. Anybody can be psychic. We're all psychic. You just need to be grounded in your body and know how to navigate your sensory channel, how to read the charge, the currents that are moving through your body. And yeah, that will allow you to read accurately.
So it's more
Mm.
trust in the person doing it rather than connecting to something else. Is that right?
You
Or
don't
is it
need
still
to.
involved?
Well, it can be, but all of that information that you receive out there is felt through the nervous system, is felt through your senses, is felt through your feelings. So actually, for you to be, okay, maybe think of it like this. So your body is a
Hmm.
divine channel, it's a conduit. And the more grounded we are, the more capable we are. We have more capacity to carry light transmissions, those transmissions that you're talking about. We can hold the station with more clarity when we're grounded. It's a bit like a tree being rooted in the ground. And when the weather comes in, it doesn't, become uprooted. It can hold the station. And then I usually say, and then we need to use our hearts to dial in into a frequency. And my guides often say, let's dial into the love channel. Because, when we move from that place, the intention is going to be right, it's going to be right intention, right? So you use your heart to, it's like a portal to soul and spirit. And if you think of your minds, which or your imagination is actually your third eye. Let's demystify that right now. It's your third eye. The critical mind exists just as your third eye or the imagination exists. And so when we get anchored and we use that dial, then it's like, the old cars with the radio stations, and they've
Hmm.
got those little knobs that you turn to
Little
try and
slider.
tune it in,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So we can like pick up multitudes of frequencies, like unlimited frequencies. Our body, our heart holds the frequency so we can hold it on that station. Otherwise, the mind is loose. The mind can send us down so many different crazy pathways, and the mind can be cruel too. It can be very harsh and
Hmm.
unkind. It can catastrophize. So the anchoring into the body, a grounded, stable, rooted, anchored state is like really pivotal in terms of you being able to become an activated oracle and a gifted reader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense completely now. So thank you for explaining that and very well with the tree metaphor. I love that one. Um, obviously we were touching on connecting there to spirit. So I'm going to move into the spirit guides section of my questioning. Whispering spirit, who is that?
Okay. Okay. So where do I start? So Yeah, many years ago, I think I mentioned in the beginning that my father was very much into the occults,
Yeah.
and we would do seances in the house regularly, and I loved it. I was fascinated by it, and I met Whisper through a seance on an Ouija board, and this conscious connection actually happens when I was 19. And I used to practice working this Ouija board with a friend of mine. And he came through as the wise old owl. And that was my first training in spirit connection. Sensations, feelings would roll through my body that my friend wasn't experiencing. She would receive sensations and feelings that I wasn't experiencing. And he became a huge part of my life. And at that time, I was in a DV relationship, and it took a lot of courage to leave that relationship. And Whisper was my guide at that time and supported me through that, through the moments that I left. The day that I left, he had said on the board, "Today's the day, pack your stuff." And I was so trusting of him because of the work that we had done, which I'll share some of it with you. Some of it's comical, some of it's really intense. But because of the work that I did with him, I was in full trust. And so he's been a poignant. He's like, I call him Spirit Father. He's like the Spirit Father. He says he lives out in the stars. And I used to try and explore that with him, but I've let go of worrying about who he is as such and just tune into the frequency now and just be with him in the way that he comes through. So yeah, it was a very interesting time working with him. He counseled both my friend and I and my sister and her friend. We used to have coffee and cake with Whisper on Saturdays. And so my sister's friend would come over and my friend would come over, and he'd counsel us around life events. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun and very confronting too. He was a therapist. So he wasn't just making predictions. Whilst he did some of that, it was mostly therapeutic work and empowering us to be in our true nature, empowering us through individuation.
And this was
And
still all done through the Ouija board at this stage, or the Ouija
yeah,
board.
and also channeling him both. So when I was running my business at Nature's Cabin, I would do platform night and channel Whisper for people. Everybody loved him. It was comical. He would come through and I would channel Whisper, and then I started teaching people how to channel, how to open to meet their spirit guides. And that has stayed. It follows me. I can't escape it. It follows me through my life. I still run sessions where I teach people how to develop a relationship with their guide. I do have a very unusual relationship in the sense that I hear him clearly and I am in conversation with him and it's ongoing.
So even right now, you're
Yeah,
hearing.
I can hear
Wow.
him. Yeah, yeah, I can hear. It's so deeply embedded. And in terms of astrology, I have what's called a conjunction in my fourth house where my son lives, and the conjunction is with Uranus and Mercury. And yeah, I get downloads. Fourth house is private self. I get some serious downloads with Uranus and Mercury being communication, Uranus being like flashes of insight. And yeah, Whisper often speaks to me through that as well. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. He
Well,
did save
I'm
my
going to prompt you to give loads of extras to say here with some questions.
he yeah, he did save my life. Genuinely. There was a time where when he really started to work through me, um, in terms of so what he would do is he would channel courses for me to teach. So it was straight from spirit. I was receiving training that I would then implement. And so it wasn't, yes, it was partly me because I was using my words, but it was very much a lot of Whisper's words too, because that would channel out on the board. And yeah, this gave me a lot of meaning in my life. And there was a time where I just didn't think I could cope anymore. I wanted to die. My life back then was terribly tragic. And so he just gave me so much faith in the great mystery of life, that there was something worth living for, something mysterious, somebody taking care of me. And it was just a really magical time, when he arrived in all his glory, in his beautiful wings.
I need to ask you
Yeah.
a question that may come across weird, or probably too personal. Do you think then, had the, I'm going to call it an intervention, had you, the channeling of whispering spirit not happened, would you not be here? Do you think therefore it is absolutely needed for you to carry on as a person for that presentation of him to occur?
So every time I have gone through a rite of passage, a major initiation in my life, I've had like incredible psychic and spiritual experiences that I just can't deny them. And so they kept me alive. So it was like the initiation itself, it took me somewhere deep within myself. It was like a portal. And yeah, I can't really answer that, um, other than, well, potentially, yeah, I don't
Mm.
know.
I
I
know it's
don't
a hard
know.
question to answer completely because
Yeah,
it's all theoretical and you can't, no one can do that per se. But
yes.
I'm just wondering, the whole spirit connection thing, right? It's an interesting topic, and it always throws up this question for me, which is, this is a 3D reality, right? We're down here for, in theory, for experiences and to grow. That's what I'm getting across all my interviews,
Yes.
and personal experiences. And I then think, why the need for outside injection of information, data, whatever we want to call it? I don't understand why that bit, because if we're down here for an experience, why not live that experience and then go back and then etc.
Yeah.
Why does that need to come in?
Yeah. Well, I just feel like it was coded in me for this lifetime, that this is the work that I'm meant to share, that I was meant to deliver. If I look at my astrology chart, I've got Pisces. I know you want to talk about astrology, so I'll add a little bit in. I've got
Yeah.
Pisces on my heaven. And my legacy is to make the unseen, give structure to the unseen, to help people understand it. And in the beginning, yes, Whisper did spoon feed information to me. He doesn't do that anymore. And it's like a toddler, a baby. We have to teach them how to tie their shoelaces. We have to teach them these basic things first. And once, once they start to be able to feed themselves, we can kind of let go a bit, hand them their food rather than spoon feeding.
Hmm.
So that's the best answer I've got for you around that. I just think we live in a multi-dimensional reality, and we have access to multiple realities in any given moment. And we're not just our physical body, of course, and that we have an option to receive guidance. There is such a thing as earthbound angels. And we do talk about that in tarot therapy, not just taking off in like the ether, channeling some, Arcturian guide. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There is such a thing as earthbound angels, people that come into our lives that we're guided to somehow, or they're guided to you. And yeah,
That
it's the best.
concept, right, of an earthbound angel, are they aware that they're an angel, or are they an angel in the moment?
I would say an angel in the moment. So
Mm.
it's like, um, the day my nephew nearly drowns in a dam, and I jumped in to save him. Now, I wouldn't call myself an angel, more of a divine rebel, but I jumped in to save him, and the timing, me seeing him, the instruction, I knew jump in the water. I was a young girl, I was only about 10, and saved his life. So we have these people, just those moments that cross our paths, that step in just at the right moments. And more often than not, they don't even realize the impact that they're having on you in that moment. They don't even realize.
Mm.
And then, yeah, of course, there are people who, just think of Mother Teresa. There are people out there that intentionally want to be there for humanity. That are humanitarians. I'd like to think of myself like that as well. I'm sure you're that way too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be running this podcast and having these kinds of discussions.
Yeah, I think that's completely. I don't know whether there's any intention behind it for me, I'm trying to not do myself a disservice because I always think of myself right horribly. It's quite selfish, and I'm not. I probably don't present that way, but I think of myself that way. So am I doing this just for me to improve my knowledge, or is there a subconscious will to disseminate information from me? I don't know.
Yes, probably both. We all, we have a secondary gain. We wouldn't do what we do if we didn't enjoy it and if we didn't get something from it. What's the
Yeah,
point,
yeah,
right? Life's here to be enjoyed too, to experience pleasure. So if you're not going to experience pleasure or enjoyment from doing these podcasts, you won't want to do it. The motivation won't be there.
yeah.
So
That's
the
true.
secondary gain, I think, is really valid. I don't make yourself wrong with that. But
Yeah.
I think that humans are ultimately egoic. We're human after all. We have an ego. And in Jungian psychology or in tarot therapy, we talk about the ego as being the part of you. There is such a thing as a healthy ego, and it has a very special job. It's supposed to integrate all of the shadow, unconscious material into your personality so that you can become whole. And the ego likes to be special. It absolutely loves it. So let's give it a job, right? And I think of it too, like the you that has the courage, the me that has the courage to turn up today and talk about this stuff and share this identity of who I am in my work and offer that to the world. And yeah, I can't, there's the ego isn't necessarily bad, but I think we're all inherently selfish somewhere. We have to be for survival.
So it's basically just a story of don't be too hard on myself because it's a needed part of me.
Correct.
Cool. Love it.
Correct.
Love it. Whispering Spirit, right? Was that person an incarnated person? And presumably it was Native American based on the name. Is that right?
Well, I think, okay, so I might just open up this in a different way.
Okay.
And so when people are first open to channel, one of the conversations I have with them is about the way in which our imagination interprets the transmission, the light frequency that's moving through your fields. And what you see in your mind's eye, in your imagination, in your third eye, is usually what we most need at the time. So let's just say it is a Native American Indian. It's more often than not that image itself is symbolic in terms of a path that you're being called to explore. And it could be medicine, it could be shamanic practices, it could be ritual, it could be ceremony. And as well as these are because they're archetypes, right? They're projecting an image for our benefit because we're human and we like to see something, we project outside of
Mm.
ourselves an image to make sense of our reality. And so, yeah, if you are likely to see a masculine form or a feminine form, that's a part of you that needs integration. It's likely, let's say if it's a masculine, we might assume, depends on the conversation that I have with the clients, that there might have been some issues with father archetype or the masculine caregiver in their lifetime. And they had developmental experience or didn't get the developmental experiences that they needed to get from that masculine. So the guides, the lights are intelligent. It's so intelligent. It'll come through in a masculine form to give you that corrective experience. So I'll say to my clients, don't ignore, don't just let the path of let the path of least resistance let just the image emerge, even if it feels like you're making it up, because the light is incredibly intelligent. So is your subconscious, and it's giving you an image that is requiring some integration. And can we just trust that and work with that? And yeah, so does that answer your question?
Yes. So I get how guides or whatever we're seeing manifest as something because we need to see it as that something to challenge ourselves. Presumably, that's part
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
I
For
always
healing.
won. I always wonder. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. I always wonder why a lot of channeled spirits always tend to be Native American, and other people have told me before because
Yeah.
they're grounded to the earth. You know, in how people look at them now, it's like they live with the earth. Is it that?
So, from a psychological perspective, I would say that is their path of least resistance. And that's the easiest way for spirits to make contact with them. So it's not that it's wrong, it's the path of least resistance. And my guide has evolved over time. My first initial, very first initial connection with him, he was just a bloke. Then he turned into Whisper. And then now I don't even have a visual representation of him. I just feel him, I hear him, I sense him, sense his love, and he's evolved. Um, so yeah, potentially, like Whisper has said that he has lived lifetimes. You know, he's experienced other timelines, and he has said that where he is now, this is a conversation many years ago. I don't ask about these things anymore, but he said that in where he exists, his frequency, that manifestation happens so quickly, just at the speed of thought, that they're so attuned, they're so aligned, they've evolved so much that they're, we're dealing in on the earth plane. It's a very slow, we're dealing with time. I know it's a man-made construct,
Mm.
but literally when you think about building a house, bricks and mortar, it takes time, right? In his realm, it's really quick manifestations, and it comes from a place of deep belief and trust, and it was way beyond my comprehension when he was discussing it with me, and I haven't ventured back there again. Probably should, shouldn't I?
Yeah, that would open up so many questions for me. Being the first one, which would be if manifestation is instant. If I thought of the house, we used the image you alluded to. If I thought of a house, would it in his realm? Would it be there as like it was a 3D world, so we could walk around it, touch the walls, and
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I can't remember the exact
wow.
details, but what he did say is that thank God that we can't manifest so quickly on the earth because of the insanity that society is living under.
Oh yeah, it would be destroyed and rebuilt instantly,
Yeah,
constantly.
right.
Yeah, it'd be a Marvel superhero film, like literally all the time. Yeah.
Don't know if even there would be such a thing as humanity anymore, right?
Ah, yeah, it definitely wouldn't be. Because you know what we're
Yeah.
like. He spilt my milk. Kill him. You know what I mean? That's a thought that might cross your mind. You
Yeah,
wouldn't do it in reality, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
wow. Um,
Whisper speaks of us as being like soul toddlers. We're not
yeah,
as
yeah.
evolved as what we think we are.
No, I know the what. I mean, I'll be open and honest, and everyone listening to this, be honest with yourself. You think the same things. The myriad of thoughts that might come across, evil, amazing, literally next to each other, but you'd never act on any of it. But every thought crosses your mind, and if that literally was manifestation in that, it would be chaos, wouldn't it?
Oh, we'd be in trouble, 100%.
Yeah.
Everybody has intrusive thoughts at some point in
Yes.
their
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have
it's
you
not
ever had
normal.
this thought? I always like this one, right? Me and my mate were on holiday in Malta, and we had a camera, and we were on the top of this like fort or something, and we were like looking over, and we just have this sudden urge to throw our cameras. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, intrusive thought. Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
intrusive thought. Yeah.
I don't like
Yeah.
those ones.
Yeah, some people have, they can be even darker,
I've had them.
where I've had clients that have had working as carers that have had intrusive thoughts and it scared them. They've got their client in the wheelchair and they're standing next to a pond and they've said, I just had this thought where I wanted to just push them into the ponds.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, I think it's the stress that we live under. We live in a society where we are hyper vigilant, on hyper arousal, over attuned to the outside world. We're over functioning. We're trying to make money to survive. We're in debt. We're living under like governments. We're self-policing. We can't even just relax. You know, the moment we sit down to relax, the first thing we usually say to ourselves is, oh, I'm being lazy. You know, we're so conditioned to be
Yeah, yeah.
workhorses. And it's not a natural state, really, but we are so used to being in that state that when we find ourselves relaxing, it's like we're trying to reach that equilibrium again of being on stress. What can I do to stress myself out again, to reach that, what you're used to functioning on?
I see what you mean.
Of
Yeah.
course, it's going to have adverse effects, right? It's going to
Mm,
create a lot of stress in the body and in the minds. Yeah.
yeah. I'm going to tell you about one other one that I've been crossing my mind during this little bit of conversation, whether I should say it or not, because if I say it, it's going to make me sound proper mental or weird in
I've
every
heard
way.
all the things. I've heard
But
all the things.
I genuinely don't want to do this, but sometimes when I'm like sit down watching TV and I've got a knife and a fork, my brain says, put the knife in your eye. Now, isn't that
Really?
bloody awful, right? I would never ever do that in a million years, right? But why does that thought cross my mind? Which leads to this question. Is that me just being weird in that moment, or is there something else trying to get in to say do that?
No, I don't think you're being haunted by any spirits. I think it's stress, it's anxiety, and actually intrusive thoughts has been linked with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I don't like to pathologize anyone. I'm not suggesting
Hmm.
you have OCD, but there might be, a lot of anxiety happening in your life at that time that creates that stress in your body, and yeah, the loose mind effect.
Hmm.
Grounding in your body would be incredibly helpful for you and soothing for your nervous system. Learning how to regulate, down regulates. You
The
obviously at
relaxing,
that
yeah,
point.
which you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably in a state of dysregulation. And in fact, everybody experiences dysregulation. That's not abnormal. Life just going out in the car. We're on high alert, right? Got to be careful, got to
Hmm.
watch the signs. We're alerts. So it's not abnormal to experience dysregulation. But if you're under extreme stress, you're probably more stressed in that moment than what you realize. You
Yes,
haven't
that's it, exactly.
downregulated.
Yeah, and I want to caveat this with 100% I will never ever do that. So if it ever happens to me, it wasn't me doing it, okay?
Yes, yes. Actually, in the field of psychiatry, most psychiatrists aren't worried about intrusive thoughts. They note
Oh,
them,
good.
but they don't worry about them. But let's not pathologize because,
I was going to
if
say,
I was going to be assessed, they would say I'm probably schizophrenic, listening to spirit,
yeah, well,
as
yes.
they are the intrusive thoughts, and I'm acting on them. So here we go. We've got some danger.
I got a good, thank you for explaining that, by the way, and that makes perfect sense. I love this today. You've answered so many questions for me about my own
Oh, so
brain, so
good.
that's great. This from your website. I was speaking to my child long before she was born. What an
Yes,
amazing tagline. What's the story
yes,
behind that?
yes. So literally, Whisper brought my daughter, her name is Selena, brought her to me prior to her being conceived. And so I had conversations with her before she was conceived. And it was on the board and it was also channeled. And yeah, I don't know what else to say other than it was her. I was in contact with her soul before she landed in my body.
What did she say,
And
though?
oh, love you, mummy. Can't wait. Can't wait to be your daughter. Can't remember. Don't remember the conversations anymore. It's so long ago. But I knew I was going to have a little girl. That was certain because of
Mm.
that connection. So she told me she was going to come through as a little girl. And actually, we are very close. Um, it could be because I'm a good mum, but we are close.
Yeah, just say that. That's
Rate
it.
myself a little bit. Yeah.
Unless she
We are.
comes in the room and disagrees with you, it has to be that. Yeah,
No, she wouldn't. She wouldn't.
good on
Genuinely,
her.
she wouldn't. We are very close. Yeah, I wish I could say more about that because it was so long ago. I mean, 13, 14, 15 years ago now.
See, that would be a thread again that I would not be able to turn down and would just keep pulling up because it opens up so many interesting thoughts, which is to say,
Yeah.
it's clearly designed. We've chosen to come to see you, to be your daughter. what's all that plan about? Who decided it? Why? That sort of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah. Yes, right. Soul contracts.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that because I am. I do, because of the astrology that I teach and the astrology that I do believe that we come in with a blueprints for our lifetime. And your astrology chart is like a fingerprints. And actually, people can be born on the same day, same time as you, but the conditions that you're born into also produce a version of you and a way in which you express the frequencies that are in your chart. So I see this time and time again with charts, astrology charts, that again, it's so mysterious, but being able to read family patterns, being able to read relationships with parents and your children too, being able to see your gifts, your strengths, where you're most likely to make money, where you're most likely to be abundant, what you're here to blossom into, who you're here to become in this lifetime. But when I read the chart, it's attunes to the clients. So again, we have a dialogue. So it's not just me speaking at them. We have a dialogue and we explore the soul contract, if you want to call it that. I like to call it a
Yeah.
blueprint for your lifetime. It doesn't answer your question about Selena, I know, but I feel like that's the great mystery.
That's
I
okay.
do take, yeah, I do take people through past life, life between lives, regressions. And we move into the realm of soul and spirit. And I don't tell them that's what we're going to do. It's usually a surprise during the hypnosis. They don't know they're going to get that. I do that specifically because I don't want them to contrive anything. And I
Nice.
have a curious to see what people, my curiosity, what people say. And everybody speaks of the great lights. One woman spoke of it as just like all these different light frequencies moving. She said it was like this moving through the field, and it was a telepathic and knowing communication with all these light frequencies. They all spoke of a feeling of coming home, this sense of being home with family. So, do you want me to keep talking?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just fascinated. I'm listening and then I'm trying to formulate questions that would be appropriate at the same time. Um,
Yes. So
you
Whisper
know,
has said, you go. No, you
no, no,
go.
you carry on.
Whisper has said that I am part of his soul family, that there's this great light, and light spreads, and I'm one of those fractals. I was birthed from his fractal of light. So he says I'm part of his soul family, and we do have soul groups.
This
It's
soul
likely
family,
that,
right? Is it all
yeah,
part of the same overall etheric field? We'll call it that. Like, let's just say there's a pot of juice. A drop is a soul family, and then there's like particles of that drop, but it still all resides within the same thing. Is that right?
yes,
Cool.
yes. So we're certain frequencies. It's highly likely that we're connected to the same soul family.
Hmm.
Because I feel like that this would make sense given the conversation that we're having right now. Yeah.
Lovely. I like to hear that. It's a supplementary question about your daughter, right?
Mm.
And you've went into the past life and regressions and stuff. Do you think that you've been her daughter in a previous life or anything? Do you have any knowledge of that?
Sometimes.
Uh,
I haven't specifically explored that consciously, but when she was younger, she used to whisper in my ear and say, "I'm your fairy godmother." And there are times, and I just think this happens with children anyway, that sometimes you feel like you're being parented by your kids, not deliberately. I would never parentify my child, but they're pretty, like my daughter's very wise. She teaches me so much. I do feel a strong connection, past life connection with her. And I also sense that my mum has a very strong connection with my daughter too. They have just a deeper an understanding of each other. And she used to call my mum her second mummy. So I wish I could give you more on that
No,
because I
that's
haven't
okay.
really got it.
Maybe it's something
Yeah.
to explore. Because I love that concept that we each take a role each certain time. So you're
Yes.
her mum this time, but then previously she could have been your mum and that sort of thing. And I wonder
Yeah,
if you ever
potentially.
discovered that. I don't know whether you need it in your life, but for me, I would love to know that about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to really love past life therapy, and I still don't I mean, I still like it. I still enjoy it, but I'm so much more interested in this lifetime. I really want to make this life so meaningful and be fully present with what's happening in my life now. And that's not to say that the past life stuff isn't relevant, but there's so much in my nervous system that's happening around this lifetime that I need to tend to that. That's what wants to be tended to more so than anything else. And then I'll go back there. Some might say, well, that's the root cause. And yeah, potentially. I've done past life work. I've done quite a lot of it for myself, not with Selena.
Okay.
But back in the day, Egyptian past lives and, some interesting past lives. But it didn't solve the problem. Didn't sort me out. And so what really has been incredibly helpful for me is doing somatic experiencing, female embodiment practices, working with my nervous system, learning how to be compassionate and empathetic to myself ultimately.
Well, you
And
find the
that's
right
been,
path that works, then, isn't it? Ultimately.
yeah,
Fair
yeah.
play. Now you touched on astrology, and I did say prior to us going live with the recording that I wanted to know a bit about it. And actually, now that we went through the stuff about tarot, I presume it's similar in that the chart is exactly the same tool to get to know the person. Is that right?
Yeah, so there are 12 spheres of life in a astrology chart or a natal chart, a sacred mandala of astrology. And each of those spheres obviously speak to a frequency in your life. And the wheel turns in the opposite direction, the anti-clockwise.
Hmm.
And that represents going inwards, the turning inwards into the self. So it's an introspective practice, astrology, and it's an esoteric psychology. So astrology initially I mean, it's been around for a very, very long time, ancient Egypt. And at the time, people didn't know their birth time. So they weren't like reading natal charts like we do now. It was based on what's called horary, which people would come in with a question and that question would be answered. But the question, the timing, the time that that question was asked was when the chart would be thrown, when the chart would be created. And you can only ask the question once. So this is how they used to do astrology back in the early days, long time ancient Egypt. And of course, things have changed quite significantly now. And there is such a thing as sidereal astrology because they've, discovered other planets, which makes current the Placidus astrology. People argue that it's inaccurate. Um, I don't work with sidereal astrology. Not that I don't believe in it. It's just the system I've learned is Placidus and it still works. It's still a psychology. And so I continue to use that. And in fact, that's what most astrologers use. I guess it's a bit like religion, right? They all kind of lead to the same road, or the same place,
Same
the same
goal, yeah,
destination.
yeah.
God, yeah, whatever that is. Yeah.
Is there a code in the universe?
A code.
A code, yeah. So is it a designed universe, i.e., the night sky that we're seeing? Is there a code embedded in that you're tapping into or
I
reading that
wouldn't have a
leads you?
clue.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, look, life is, there is mathematics, right? We're dealing with sacred geometry and mathematical equations, and the astrology charts is based on mathematics. I'm definitely not the one to be speaking to around sacred geometry and and the mathematical codes of the universe. It's not my fields. Um, yeah, that's not really my
No, that's
area
okay.
of these, so I can't answer that properly for you.
Okay, I'm just going to put a big negative point against your name. No. Yeah, I think there is in that the the universe is some measure of matrix, and if you can see, there is a code there, and it makes me think that this everything is a designed medium. Now, whether that's from us creating it slowly over time, or whether somebody plonked it here and then said, right, go in there and explore, both are
Yes.
interesting. But
Yes, both are interesting.
mm,
Yeah, I don't know. This is the great mystery, the black backdrop to life. There are some things that are just a great mystery.
very
One day
much
we
so.
might discover it. Yeah,
I
don't
hope
know.
so, but it won't be in my lifetime, probably.
No, I'm not intelligent enough to go there.
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? If you knew everything in the universe in this body, we probably would not be functioning people.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Too much to
Yeah.
store in there. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
a question I wrote, which I think you've already answered it, especially via the tarot stuff. And I wrote, how personal can this stuff get with astrology? But I think because you're then tailoring it with the psychology of talking to people and getting to know stuff, that's how you narrow it and focus down. Is that right?
How personal can it get?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, many of my clients, students that learn astrology with me, become so anchored, so aligned, so individuated that it changes their life and it changes their career path, or it enhances their career path. They start to integrate these quirky aspects of themselves that they thought was a problem, or it was hidden, it was suppressed somewhere out of their awareness because they were told it wasn't acceptable for whatever reason. We repress things. And when that starts to integrate, they start to become more whole and they love themselves more. They start to blossom and they start to work with these as strengths rather than weaknesses. And through that, they start to kind of like the conditioning that they were born into starts to fall away and they start to find themselves. And yeah, so that's the gift. People blossom and it is like a relief. I have students that get really teary because it's like finally they feel this, they feel the truth in it, the sense of coming home to who they really are. And the permission to like, yeah, okay, so I've got Mercury in the first house. Fuck it, I like to talk a lot. I'm going to be a radio producer or whatever it is.
Mm.
I teach. That's what I do. So it's like you get full permission to just live out your birth chart. But of course, I do solar return charts too. And I think it's a beautiful combination. You've got your natal chart, which is your blueprints, and then your solar return chart, which is a predictive, so accurate, scarily accurate. Predictive astrology, where I map out your year ahead based on the sun's return to the same place where you were born in the night sky. And um, yeah, that is the blossoming. Each year we're blossoming. Our natal chart's like a petal opens. And yeah, it's a beautiful accompaniment to tarot. Tarot really speaks to the present moment and the probable outcome of this present moment. Astrology speaks to your soul's blueprints and the solar return. Let's map out your future. Let's map this out. What do the stars have to? What because we're asking God, we're asking the stars, we're
Mm.
asking what's above
You know,
in community.
have you done your own solar return
Yeah,
chart
all
to
the
see?
time, all the time.
Are you pleased by the outcomes of that or not?
Yes. Well, yeah, I didn't heed some of the warnings. Last solar return, I had a few little warnings, as in, be careful around this situation. And I ignored it and went ahead anyway and got the outcome that it was predicting if I didn't ignore, yeah. So, yes, I do follow them. And yeah, I'm always taking the sneaky peek, especially when I do a good one for a client. I think, oh, I've got to go and check out mine. What's mine saying?
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm ignoring it again. No, you shouldn't be doing that as the teacher. You have to show a good example. I want to quickly take a sideways step before we enter the Koit zone and then wrap up about soul immersion. You mentioned that on your website. And what intrigues me is soul map and purpose. And I think this one would intrigue everyone the most. Why are we here? Can you tell us a bit about soul map?
Yeah. So, okay, now of course this is going to be subjective, right? This is going to be my interpretation of the meaning of life.
Sure.
And ultimately, I feel we're here to become an expert of the lived experience based on doing what we love. And seated in that soul map are what I would call diamonds of self-worth. And we're here to integrate all of those parts of ourselves that we've rejected, and they bring gifts with them, for us on the path. The more the more in touch we are with our self-worth, the clearer the path is. We have more clarity about what we're here to do in this lifetime. And it's not necessarily being like Oprah Winfrey. It's simply just doing what you love and becoming an expert of that, whatever that might be. All the different, for me, is psychology and esoteric studies. Focus on what I love and just develop my skills in there as much as I can. Become an expert of it, and it brings me pleasure and joy and abundance and great conversations with people like you. And yeah, it's a lucky path when we allow ourselves that journey. So that's in a nutshell
What soul immersion is. Yeah, you're just helping people get to their goal.
It's living an authentic life. It's being true to your soul. Being true to your soul. And yeah, that might include some goals. I don't know what your goals would be. Ultimately, it's letting love evolve you in this lifetime. And there are gifts. If you look at anything you've created, this channel this podcast that you've created, it's seeded with love. It's ultimately at the very core of it, it's seeded with love. Love births so many incredible experiences in our lifetime. And yeah, that's what I'm helping my clients to feel into, to align to become true to, and have permission. And yeah, so a soul map is like we're using all the tools, all the esoteric tools, but the map is you. It's your body, it's your nervous system, your psychology, your soul, your connection to spirit. And I help people develop that relationship to know themselves so deeply that they learn to trust themselves and learn to trust the map.
Which then ultimately leads, in theory, to a fulfilling life, which is what we all want.
That's the hope. Life has its ups and downs. We'll still have initiations, right?
Yeah. I like that. And that's a lot simpler than I thought it might be. You're just guiding people to what they want to do, how they want to be, who they want to be, etc. And I like that.
Yeah, to love themselves.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Right. We are going to take another sideways jaunt into the Koit zone. Koit zone! Right. So I've asked you loads of questions on what we might call big topics. I'm now going to focus it right down onto trivial, inane topics. So let's just jump in. Answer best you can. So what is your favourite film?
Troy.
Oh, aye. With Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Ah, why?
I love the mythology, and yeah, I love the mythology, and cool. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
No, that's it. That's it. Cool. Lovely. What is the best thing about living in Australia?
Oh, the sunshine and being next to the ocean. I live about 800 meters from the beach, and it's
nice.
Fabulous. Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Here's a strange one. How many pairs of shoes do you own?
Oh, maybe 20.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Is that a lot?
It sounds a lot. I think I got about 4 or 5, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
20. At least you haven't got like closets full of them, like Imelda Marcos. Do you remember her?
No.
Eggs. How do you like eggs cooked?
Fried.
Yeah, and how are you presenting your fried egg?
Oh, I like it on toast with avocado. Is that what you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
yes, because you answered it bang on with the presentation. I probably should have chosen a different word. How are you cooking the egg to perfection? So are you
Sunny
sunny side
side
up?
up.
Yes, good, good. And it's not it's still runny in the middle, yeah?
Yes, yes, it's got to have a little bit of, yeah, definitely.
Correct. You have won that point back from earlier that you lost, so well done on that one. On a food theme, what is your ideal breakfast?
My ideal breakfast is scrambled egg, actually. I enjoy
Ah,
that with mushrooms, tomato, and feta on a seeded bread with avocado.
that is highly specific. Well played to you. Do you have sauce on it?
No, no, just that bit of salt and that's it. And I really love it. And but I don't do it very often because, I just yeah,
Because, yeah.
a lot of bit of work. It's not really that much work, but yeah. Anyway,
A side question. Do you get brown sauce in Australia?
yes, we do.
Are
Yeah,
you a brown sauce or tomato ketchup?
Neither mayonnaise.
Man, oh wow, gone the third category. Nice. What was your favourite toy as a child?
Well, I had a doll's head
The doll's
that I
head.
used a doll's head that I used to drag around. So I was very attached to it for a number of years. So there you
A
go.
doll's
Yeah,
head.
a doll's
Excellent.
head.
What happened to the rest of the body?
Who knows? I don't know, but I love
Yeah.
that doll's head.
We
They
don't
couldn't get
talk
rid of
about
it for a long time. Yeah.
that. Have you ever been up in a hot air balloon?
No, no.
Would you do it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Good on you.
If
Good on
someone
you.
if someone, someone took me, yeah.
Fair play. Random question, I know. What is one skill that you don't have that you would like, i.e., swim if you can't?
One skill that I don't have that I would like.
Yeah.
Um, I'm belly dancing. And it's been a number of years, and it's taking a long time to coordinate the movements. So I would love to be a belly dance teacher. So that's a skill that I would love to have. Yeah.
See, now here's the thing. You mentioned obviously the soul map and purpose, and you just said it. You would love to be it. So then you've got to go and do it, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Good. Well played. You're living the thoughts that you mentioned. Night or day works best for you?
Day, definitely day.
Lovely. You wake up one day, right, and you realise that you're a ghost. You can go anywhere just by thinking it. Where are you going and what are you seeing?
Well, I'll go to my daughter first if she's still alive with me. Otherwise, I'm off to Egypt.
What to look at the pyramids?
Go
Yeah.
inside, go into the places where we're not allowed to go. Yeah.
Yes, or the things we haven't discovered yet. I like that one. Yeah. Good
Mm.
on you. I'd probably do similar. It's definitely the
Yeah.
historical mysteries that really intrigue my mind. I wish we had the answers again while I'm alive, but I'm not sure we 100% will. Right, that is the end of the Koit zone. I told you it would be inane and random. So there we go. Two final questions before we wrap up. First of which is, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures that you...
Don't mind a rosé. Love live bands. Love live music. So I like to go down to my local pub and there's a band, 80s undergrounds. Love it. That's a good night for me. And yeah, I like hanging out at the beach. Love it. Really love just swimming in the ocean and the quiet time. And I have music down, in my ears down the beach if I'm on my own and just chill out. And yeah, it's what I love to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
The beach swimming, I have to ask, is it dangerous with it where you are, with like jellyfish and sharks and stuff or not?
There were a few jellyfish this summer. They're just little stingers. They don't really hurt. But sharks, there's a few shark alarms. They have like a helicopter going back and forth, not in
Oh, okay.
winter. Enter at your own risk in winter, but in summer the beaches are manned, so they have helicopters going by, and yeah, it's pretty annoying when it's a hot day. You've just got down the
Mm.
beach and bloody your siren goes off, and then you're like, oh, got to wait an hour before you can go in the water.
Bloody sharks!
Yeah, that's right. How annoying. Yeah, you're not allowed to go in. So, yeah, they're only trying to save our lives. But
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And that leads me to our final question. Do you have any projects that you're currently working on? Is there anything you're doing?
Yeah, so it's the belly dancing, actually. I want to incorporate that into somatic experiencing and female embodiment practices. So I've been doing training with that and just really loving it at the moment. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future. Excuse me. I have no idea what will unfold from it, but I'm just following the nudge. I'm following the passion and the love. And if it's just for me, amazing, because I love it. If it ends up being something that moves into my soul work, then
Even
amazing,
better. Yeah, yeah.
great. Yeah,
Fair play, fair play. Belly dancing. Very niche, but cool. I'm glad it brings you joy. Fair play to you.
yeah, love it. Mm.
Excellent. Marina, thank you ever so much for your time today. Candid responses, and I've had a great time. Like I've said to you during it, I've learnt a lot, so thank you ever so much.
Oh, thanks, Koit. So I've really enjoyed being here. And actually, you made it very easy for me, down to earth, really organic conversation. I felt like I could just relax and be myself. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And to everyone watching and listening, check out links in the description to Marina's site. Go and learn some stuff, get in contact, learn more about yourself. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thanks.
See you on the next one. To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.